All right, everybody, we're back. Brand new take aim, and just recently got back 2 days ago from the Iowa Deer Classic out in Des Moines. Me and my buddy Scotty went and had a good time, and we ran into Blake Lefler from TrophyPursuit.com and in Muddy Outdoors. And basically, me and Blake got talking. We're like, hey, we need to get together on a podcast, and that's what we did. But Blake shares a great story about him, his buddies from Trophy Pursuit, and a big piece of property, or I should say several pieces of properties they manage and kind of work together as a team to basically get on and kill big deer. So there's some good takeaways on just, how a group does it and leases a bunch of land and just overall communicates to get the job done. So hope you guys enjoy this week's show. Boys and girls, we're live, brand new Take Aim podcast, and excited to get this show on the road this week and share the show with Blake Lefler. Did I say that right, Blake?
Yeah.
Last name? All right. But Blake is from TrophyPursuit.com and Muddy Outdoors. Everybody knows Muddy's from the awesome tree stands they make and other very cool gear they make. But what's up, Blake? How are you doing?
Pretty good. Just playing catch up after the weekend at the Iowa Deer Classic and kind of back to some normalcy now, waiting for the snow to melt.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's talk about that for a second. I got to hang out with you and talk to you there, but how'd the show go for you?
Excellent. I think, in my years of going to the Deer Classic as a consumer spectator and then also helping out with some booths, I think this was probably one of the better years. There's a really good diverse amount of different outfitters and businesses and all kinds of stuff. And it's always fun because you get to, put a face to a name with a lot of people that you see on social media and know in that realm, but you never see them in person. And the Deer Classic is kind of a big end of the year, end of the season reunion. So I really enjoy that show.
Yeah, that's cool. I was curious kind of what you thought of this year's show because it was like my first time ever coming out there. So without having any history to it, I just thought it was awesome and pretty magical. For one, it's pretty much it's really cool because it's scheduled or focused on just deer hunting, which I really like. It's I love ATA and it's just different. It's a manufacturer show and this is just deer hunting. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that compared to previous years, but that was pretty cool that you said that you thought it was one of the better ones.
Yeah, and I think the guys that run it, John and Steve, and the guys with Iowa Show Productions, I can't personally say enough great things about those guys. They have done their due diligence to grow the show, and I'll tell you what, the headaches that are involved with running a show like that, those guys just, smooth as butter the whole weekend. And, they've grown it to a point where I think, even next year it could be a bigger show. And, to be able to showcase Iowa in general and other Midwestern states for deer, it gives guys, like yourself from other states the opportunity to come and get a snapshot of what Iowa's all about when it comes to deer hunting and meet some of the people from that area. So, yeah, I give it an A+ this year, and I look forward to going to it every year.
Yeah, it's cool. I know what Scotty that I was with, but Scotty just was like, dude, he's already making plans for next year. I'll put it like that. So that's how good the show was. So, which is quite a bit to say for guys that are coming from. He's 5.5 hours. I'm 7.5 hours. So if a show can pull guys like that from like you said, Michigan and northwestern Indiana, it's a pretty dang good show. Yeah. So, well, tell us a little bit about your relationship before we start talking some big deer from Iowa, but tell us a little bit of your relationship with Muddy and Trophy Pursuit.
Sure. So 2011, I guess, is when Trophy Pursuit really got its jump start. Chris Duncan, who's one of the marketing guys at Muddy, came up with the idea, to start a web show or start our own hunting show. We'd been filming for several years together before that. And so he came up with the idea of Trophy Pursuit and kicked it off. And, for several years there, he worked his tail off to get the thing off the ground floor. And, just like any business, if you put a quality product out there or somebody finds some value in it, you network and make the right relationships and things can really come together. And through some different channels. I'll just say that sprint car racing really brought a unique opportunity for us. The owner of Muddy Outdoors at that time, Todd Clearing from Mainstream Holdings, we knew him through sprint car racing and got to know him on that level. And he essentially picked up Trophy Pursuit in 2000 and I believe it was 2015. We essentially partnered with him, and Chris went to work for him full time as a marketing guy there, and really elevated Trophy Pursuit, took it to newer heights, and we've been able over the years to kill some pretty good deer on video, but more importantly, tell some pretty good stories. And I think bringing the grassroots of hunting and what we're all about, is relatable to the viewers. And so, yeah, for several years we were able to do that. And then last fall, the decision was made to kind of bring all of our content all under the Muddy flag. And so now we're kind of sitting in limbo. The plan is still to do that, at least right now. Next fall, we've got all kinds of content from this last year to share with everybody, but we went away from the semi-live show, and we're making plans to just have a full season starting, in July or August. But as many of you have probably heard, Muddy, Big Game, and Hawk all sold to GSM Outdoors right around the time of the ATA show. So we got a lot of things in the works right now, and I don't have all of the answers on how, we're going to approach this next season, if it'll be under Trophy Pursuit or Muddy or what our plan is. But either way, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I hope it stays true, because you guys have always put out really good content, and it still had that self-employed type of small business feel to Trophy Pursuit, so I hope it stays like that.
Yeah, and I know from talking with Chris and Taylor and everybody with Trophy Pursuit and the guys that contribute, that's one thing I don't think we'll ever get away from when it comes to the content side of things. So. Well, that's good. I know on top of that, it has always been one of my favorite tree stands has been a Muddy, and one of my hunts this year down in Indiana, actually, one of my buddies, he's always been in a climber. I'm just not a climber guy, but I got Muddy up and sticks, in which I know you know this, Blake, already, but just sharing with the listeners, but as fast or faster than those guys can get, up in their climber and get it set, and just a huge difference of what those lightweight stands will do for you, and just the comfort and versatility of a Muddy. I've always been a huge fan. Yeah. Do you what model did you use?
Okay, so let me go back, because it's a few years I've had these. These would be, they're the aluminum, the bigger aluminum. Are they called the Outfitter or something?
Yeah. Yep. It'd be either an Outfitter, a Vantage Point, a Vantage, or a Bloodsport.
Okay, I have the Bloodsport, and I have I think it's the Outfitter Vantage. It's the bigger aluminum with the, bigger deck, bigger V type of stand with a footrest.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're probably the Outfitter, would be my guess.
Yep. So, but, and the Bloodsport, man, just amazing. Like, talk about quick as it comes. One of my favorite stands ever, just such a unique design. And for people that don't know what I'm talking about, that stand, what would you call the system on it that gripped the rope, Blake?
It's like a rope and cam system. So it uses like a paracord or a climbing rope to secure it to the tree, and then it's got a cam system that you feed that rope through, and then it locks itself into place.
But anyways, that stand, yeah, like Blake was just saying, it has a rope system, basically like a mountain climbing system, and then literally is dead silence. You throw the rope around, you basically ratchet in those teeth, and you're up in seconds. And probably one of my favorite stands, I think, ever that Muddy's made.
Yeah, it's by far my favorite. I've got several of them. They don't make it anymore, more or less for business reasons. But, yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to sell any of mine. I think I'm going to, run them until I wear them out. And if I can make them work, I'll continue to use them. For what we do, and I guess, back when we first started Trophy Pursuit, a big part of what we did was just the hanging hunts. We didn't have, tree stands to go on every single farm, and we also didn't have the amount of time that we do now to have permanent setups and to move things around. We were looking at, only having about a week off from work or, school or whatever it might have been. So having that portability was huge in our success early on. And even to this day, we carry blood sports in still with us to, hang at the camera stand or whatever. They're just so quiet and easy to get in. That's by far my favorite stand.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, by far. And I was really disappointed when they stopped making them. And like you said, I would probably never sell mine. And hopefully, potentially, can keep it up in working condition and use it forever, because it's just so convenient, man. I really wish they were still making them, but probably save me on my financials though, because I would end up buying about 10 of them.
Yeah, that's no kidding. So.
But let's talk about some big deer, man. Blake has shot a lot of nice deer out in Iowa, and I just thought it was a cool story that this past year you, your brother, and one of your best buddies had shot some really awesome deer. And I know you kind of were telling me at the Iowa Deer Show, you kind of run a few leases with a bunch of guys, and I just thought it would be a great topic if we could talk about how you make that work with different people, different personalities, and managing all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely adds a whole different element to hunting, for myself and others. But, I think my personal belief is a big part of hunting is just the relationships you build with your friends and family throughout. So, to be able to work with, some of my best friends and, Chris Duncan and myself, we grew up hunting together, grew up same town, known him my entire life. And same with Taylor Riggin, we met in college, and, my brother. Just to be able to, share places to hunt and share responsibilities and management and, between getting food plots in and setting stands and running cameras and, the whole thing that we all do to make it a year-round process, to share that with guys that, are just as passionate about big deer and hunting in general as you are. For me, it makes it a better experience. We've been very fortunate to have some successful years, and this past year didn't disappoint by any means. So,
no, it was, from what I saw, you guys did really well, and like you said, very cool that it's nice to hook up with guys or even a family member that have your kind of passion or share the same interest on the hunting side, which I totally get. It's hard to find that. You don't get guys that want to put in the work or the time or the travel to do those things. So it's kind of like a hidden gem and a hunting buddy, so to speak, when you do find somebody like that. So kudos to you guys for at least starting to get on the same page. It sounds like you already have, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and just to kind of further that, so our dynamic is very different. My brother and I share a farm that my dad originally, it's a permission farm. We got permission to hunt it when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And, we grew up hunting there. Yeah, and we've been fortunate enough to kind of be able to expand in that area and pick up some more farms that tie into that main one. But that farm has produced great deer over the years. Several of them that I've been able to take have come off of that farm. And my brother isn't, I wouldn't say he's maybe as diehard as Chris or myself or Taylor. But he loves hunting, and he loves bow hunting especially. And I'll tell you what, for a guy that he doesn't hunt as much as we do, but he's had some of the worst luck when he has been able to get out. Not this past year, but the year before, he had one of our top bucks, nice 155, 160 inch 10 at the base of the tree at full draw, and just didn't get a shot off. He was following him, and as the buck had started to pass by the tree, he caught some ground set and just, instead of stopping and waiting, he caught that ground set and just bolted. And so, that ruined his season then. And, even the years prior, he just struggled to get on a big deer. And this past year, he finally had things come together. We've been following a buck that we call Wacko on this specific farm now for 2 years. Last spring, we shed hunted, picked up both sides of his sheds all summer long. He's all over the cameras. Even this fall in October, he's shown up on scrapes and daylight, the way we all want a pattern deer. And when it came time for Blaine's vacation, I think he only had 3 sits in on him. He hunted one day, morning and night, and then the next day, instead of going in first thing in the morning, he opted to go in late morning to set the rest of the day. And I think he only been in the stand for an hour. And the cool part with that story is the same stand that the year prior he had that 10 at, point blank range and couldn't get a shot off before he bolted. And it's the exact same stand, same scenario. Deer was coming from a different direction, walked up on him at about 10 yards and was able to get an arrow in it and, backed out because it was a marginal hit. And the next day went in and found him pretty quickly. So as a 166-inch deer with just tons of character, a bunch of dagger points off the base. And, I couldn't be more pumped for him. That's the biggest deer he's taken with a bow and probably the best season he's had. So it was pretty cool to share that with him.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that deer and it was amazing. I was thinking in my head, I didn't see a score on it or anything, but I was thinking that it had to be that big, and I was like, man, that's just such a giant. And exactly what you had described about it, Blake, it's just awesome character and just a very unique rack. And but how cool for that kind of story to happen to your brother and it fall that way that, he basically made it up the following year on just a deer with immense character and just a big old Iowa deer, man. Just a big old deer, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so, and I guess, to go through our entire season, we kicked it off, Chris's wife. Well, let me back up. So to go back to like what we were talking about with sharing leases and sharing farms.
Yep.
And, myself and Chris Duncan and Taylor Riggin all collectively share lots of farms. And Chris's wife, Alex, as well. She's become a big hunter since they'd met, and I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a stone cold killer, that girl can kill some big deer, and it seems like every yearly muzzleloader she does. And that was really how we kicked our season off. We had several new farms. We scrambled all summer long to try to get a good inventory on things, but I think this past year we were probably behind the 8 ball on the scouting for most of the season, but we managed to pull things together at the right time. But early muzzleloader, Alex hunted I think almost every day for the entire season, which the season's like 6 days long, and it was the last day of the season at last light. Big 160-inch deer stepped out and she dropped them, so that really got the ball rolling for us mid-October. And then myself and Chris started hunting just after October 27th. I'd started kind of the vacation, I guess, if you want to call it that, and check the cameras, late October, like I think we've all seen on hunting shows, and just trying to figure out, hey, where are the day walkers at? So I took an afternoon or an early mid-afternoon and went to, some farms where we had some deer we wanted to target and check cameras. And a real big 8 that showed up this summer. We don't have any history with him simply because it's a new farm, but he showed up all summer long in velvet and then disappeared, like they do when they shed velvet. And we hadn't got any recent pictures of him until October 27th. And he started showing up on a particular corner of the farm. He was on 3 different cameras all in daylight. And so the day that I got that information, I texted Chris and Taylor, and we were making our plans for that night to hunt. And I said, hey, this big 8, he's probably 150 plus, big mature 8. He's on all 3 of these cameras in daylight. This particular corner of the farm sits up really well to hunt. And the wind was, I think it was northeast. And I said, what do you guys want to do? Somebody needs to go sit in the soft side blind on the kill plot. The wind's perfect. This deer's running in daylight. Go do it. And ultimately, the very first hunt that we had on that deer was Taylor. Taylor was getting done working a little later in the afternoon, and this farm set up better for him to get to. And I had all the time in the world that afternoon to go somewhere else and hunt. So I told Taylor, I said, hey, go hunt him. It's easier for you to get there late. I'll go somewhere else. So Taylor goes there, didn't have a successful hunt that night. And then the very next day, Chris and I got together and decided we were going to go in. We had an opposite wind. The wind had switched. And again, with this deer moving in daylight, it was just a matter of time. So another hanging hunt situation. We talked about the blood sport earlier. We didn't have a stand kind of in a particular spot where we needed to have it. And so we walked in. It was really a warm day. We walked in and we hung our set, and we probably made more noise than we should have getting in, but we've just been able to prove in the past that it just simply doesn't matter sometimes when you don't have a stand set up and you got to cut branches and do those things, for whatever reason, it still can work. So we got the stand set, and, beautiful night. Really wasn't thinking it was going to be a great hunt, just, again, simply because we walked in and hung our stuff. But, like they always do right there, before last light at kill time, he shows up in this big hayfield, already dogging a doe late October. So grunt and snort wheeze, and got his attention, and he walked down, a couple 100 yards through an open hayfield to 30 yards, and the rest is history.
Wow.
That was mine.
That is really cool. So can I back up 1 second, Blake? I'm just curious. When is your guys' early muzzleloader exactly?
It's like the third week of October every year,
okay.
Right around the week of October. So, yeah, like the 15th through the 20th.
Okay. And you mentioned some of your guys, like the new farms, summer velvet scouting and running those trail cameras. How do you guys manage that between the group? Do you just kind of say, if somebody's free, they're going to do it, they just communicate, or do you guys kind of assign so-and-so's doing this, I'm doing that type of deal, or how do you guys manage all that effort?
Yeah, so it really is it just boils down to communication, really. I mean, this past summer it seemed like there were some farms that were a little easier for me to get to and get things taken care of on, so I handled that. And then likewise with Chris and Taylor, we just collectively decide, hey, you go check these cameras, I'll check those, and we get all of our pictures together in a group where we can all see them, and just start building our photo albums and putting our resources together. But the biggest thing there, is just communication. There might be some weeks where Chris goes and checks cameras on a farm that I've been doing most of it on all summer long, and then vice versa. It just really kind of depends. All of us have young kids, and so it just depends on what needs done when and who's available to do it. Everybody steps up to the plate when we got to get stuff done, and it works great that way. I'd say the biggest thing when it comes to sharing farms for us is just the communication and kind of the selflessness when it comes to hunting and pictures and deer. I can't recall a time where any of us were arguing over, a specific deer. Oh, that's my deer. You know what I mean? I think if there's something that I personally dislike the most is when somebody refers to a deer as their deer, And so
yeah, sure.
none of us have that attitude. And, for example, like I talk about the 8 that I killed, the first hunt on that deer was actually Taylor, and to be quite frank with you, even me killing that deer, it was our first hunt of the season together, me and Chris. We had a rock, paper, scissors game to decide who got to be the hunter and who was filming that night. I just got lucky enough that I think I chose scissors and he had paper. So, I guess having that kind of attitude towards it makes it easy. Sharing farms with guys like that makes it easy. I enjoy watching those guys be successful, and I think they would say the same. And when you have that type of relationship with people, it just makes it easy.
Yeah, a lot better. I mean, that means all that stress is gone, and it's the right way to do it. And like you said, the right kind of attitude is just the next man up. Next man up. If somebody's free and can do it, they go do it. And I think that's a really good system. And it's always nice when nobody's fighting over deer. You guys, which I think is probably pretty common knowledge between you guys, are upper end hunters. On the scale of your career in bow hunting and hunting, there's going to be another big deer, so there's no reason for anybody to kind of get, so-called butthurt over a deer or claim it's his or hers.
Yeah, exactly. And, I guess leading into, what happened, the rest of our season is, so, I win the rock, paper, scissors match. I get on our big 8 that was showing up in daylight. We get him killed late October where, Alex has a tag punched. I've now got a tag punched, and we're not even cracked into November yet. Things are rolling really, really good at this point. And the next morning, Chris and I decided to go to the other side of the farm where I killed mine at. And, it's such a big farm, and we're so new to it, and we had some unique obstacles this summer dealing with the cattle and where the farmer was going to have them at, that getting a really solid inventory or a really solid pattern on deer wasn't easy. And where we went for Chris's buck, we were purely operating off of knowledge that we had from shed hunting the year before when we first got on the farm, and just seeing where some really big buck sign was at in those spring months, and just marking it and realizing, hey, this is a general area that we need to go focus on. And so, what was it? In mid-September, I went to this, it's a small woodlot in the middle of the property. I mean, it's a long ways from everywhere. It's not easy to get to, but it sets up really well for a bedding area, essentially. And there's cattle fields all around. I mean, I think if you looked at this on a topo, most people would overlook it. And we just, again, just from walking it and seeing the sign the year before, we knew, hey, we need to go there. So I went there in September and walked in there, and it's so thick, and, it's warm, and you can't see anything, really from the year before as far as good deer trails and things like that. So I'm trying to picture in my mind, what we had seen during shed season, and essentially just used, the geography of the area with ridges coming together to just create a pinch point that allowed us to put our wind in a position where if deer were in there on a certain wind, we wouldn't get picked off. So
right.
I found a ridge that pinched together really nice, and I couldn't find any scrapes. I mean, it was mid-September, which, sometimes scrapes are popping up then, but generally it's just on the field edges and not in the timber. So I learned a trick from a friend of mine, actually from Michigan, to use paracord to help make, a mock scrape. And what I did was I tied some paracord perpendicular to a trail that was running up the middle of the spine of this ridge. And I cut an oak branch and hung it from the paracord right over the trail, cleared out, a truck hood size area with nice black dirt, and we threw a camera up on it. And I walked out mid-September thinking, hey, this might be a good spot. It might not.
Right.
With the stand set up, it played the wind perfectly. It allowed us to hunt there perfectly, but we just don't know when or if something that we want to kill is going to show up. So going, into, October, late October for Chris's hunt, we decided, hey, what better time than to go give that a try? We need to check the trail camera back there anyway, and let's just go get a morning hunt in there. It's easy access. Let's go do it. So we walked in. First morning hunting that stand was incredible. I think if you've hunted long enough, we've all had those mornings where it's like a light switch went off, and you just, buck after buck, and it's, rut activity is what a lot of people would call it.
It's the morning. It's the morning.
Yeah, it was the morning. We had several bucks go hit that mock scrape. It seemed like that was just like the magic trick. It put every deer that we saw that morning within, 20 yards of our stand. Chris actually passed up a deer that I can't wait to share that footage, but he's probably mid-160s and a 4-year-old. It's a deer that, we looked at several times, like, do you pass him up? And this deer was within 20 yards. I can't tell you how many different times that same morning he was in and then chasing a doe and then back in, and just, an incredible morning, right? We sit there till like midday. We get down, walk out. We didn't hunt that night. And we decided, hey, with what we're seeing back there, perfect wind, we didn't hurt anything. Let's jump in the next morning and do the exact same thing. So we did. And again, as soon as day broke, actually even before we could see, we had, deer within 20 yards of us. And it was just all morning long, constant deer activity. And about mid-morning, we glassed down the draw, and there was a real big, just gnarly, heavy-looking deer coming up the draw, and turned and caught a trail that runs right to where the spine of the ridge kind of meets another ridge, and what I would consider an interior pinch point right where our mock scrape was at. And as he's coming in, you look at him, and on the hoof, Chris is asking me, how big he is. I said, well, he's old. He's definitely mature, and I would say, probably mid-60s, deer, solid deer. I'm like, he's a shooter no matter what.
Yeah, that's good deer.
Yeah, and he says, yep, I'm going to shoot him. So he's coming down the trail like he's on a string, and he's working right towards our mock scrape. And, he gets to about 20 yards and turns to get to that scrape. And, Chris, I don't think he had it in him to let him get there and work it. So he let it fly and, made a perfect shot, and we watched him go down on film. And just an incredible deer. It was even better because, a lot of times we kill one and you get up there and it's not quite what you expected. The old saying of ground shrinkage. Well, there was 100% no ground shrinkage with this deer when we got up there. It was I can't believe what you just did. I said, this deer is 180 plus all day long. he was. And, going back to my comment earlier about just not getting a great inventory or having a great pattern on specific deer for this farm and being new to it, we didn't even realize that we had pictures of this deer. And it turns out we did. From late summer, we had one series of photos of him and one other deer, and we just didn't recognize him on the hoof because, he was with an even bigger deer this summer. And we also, when we got the pictures of him in the summertime, he just didn't really trip our triggers. We figured he was a nice 160-inch deer, but wasn't anything off the radar. And the only reason we thought that was because he was with a bigger deer. And
wow.
So yeah, he surprised us in a good way. And I think that's one of Chris's biggest bow kills, not his biggest, but I think second biggest bow kill. And turns out a few weeks ago, we were going through sheds from last year, and we had picked up this deer's sheds from the year before, and the jump that he made from last year to this year is incredible, and we'll be able to share all that through our video. But it was kind of unique this year for sure, especially for his hunt and that farm, and just being new to it. We didn't have, I shouldn't say have all of our ducks in a row per se, but there was just there were some things that we didn't quite pick up on, and now going back, we're putting some of the pieces of the puzzle together, and it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, heck yeah. It's kind of neat how the story unfolds and what you learn from a piece of property, and how sometimes it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it's like, hey, we just picked up a shed here. It doesn't look like a great hunting spot, but like as we both know, Blake, like those are some of the spots you're like, I don't know. There's just a feeling you gotta go check it out. You gotta go hunt it once, and then it turns into being a 160-inch old big deer for you guys, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, just a great October for us this year, and then rolling into November. Taylor and Blaine, my brother, were the next two up to bat, and obviously we talked a little bit about Blaine's deer or hunt with Wacko, and Taylor definitely got the award for earning his buck this year. Last year it was kind of me. I had to put in quite a few sits and quite a few days in a row to get on one last year, and that was Taylor this year. I think I hunted with him filming for like 6 or 7 straight days, and it was just a grind the whole time. It was like he was, everywhere the big deer were, he wasn't, and we just couldn't quite, you can make all the right decisions in the world, but if there's always a little bit of luck involved, and things just weren't clicking, getting on them. It wasn't even anything we were doing wrong. It was just they weren't seeing them, and so he put in lots and lots of time, and it got to the point where the day that he did kill, it was late November, and we had pulled a muddy blind in on a hay rack right into the middle of this big cornfield, and there was 30, 40, 50 deer coming out in it at night, and just incredible amount of deer every single night in this field. And without me or Chris there to film, he was kind of struggling to get anything on film with it, but he had a big old deer with a messed up left side. Be interested to see what his age is, but came in right at last light. Taylor was able to get an arrow in him at like 35 yards, and the rest was history with that. Went back the next morning and picked him up, but just a really cool, unique deer. And it was able to, I don't know if you've been following the Hunt Quest, right? I know you had a podcast with those guys.
Yeah,
here recently.
That's right.
Yep. So Chris and Taylor had entered them into that Hunt Quest here at the beginning of the season, and that deer that Taylor killed with his bow is what put them over the top and helped propel them to winning that for Iowa. So
no, that's crazy. That's pretty dang cool.
Yeah. So we've got 2 teams, entered for next year for that Hunt Quest, and I know we're all chomping at the bit to get ready. I mean, that in and of itself adds a whole other element to our dynamic with sharing leases and being a part of that Hunt Quest. I think is going to be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be really cool, and excited to actually do it this year as well. And we'll probably end up doing it in Missouri as well too, and along with Iowa. But yeah, I bet you it's going to be really neat. I'm kind of excited. It's such a good system, and like you said, I think it's just going to add a whole nother element to hunting and just having fun with it.
Yeah. Hey, while we're talking about the Hunt Quest thing, do you know? So you can enter teams into different states, but you can't enter yourself twice in the same state, correct?
No, you can actually. So like I could be a teammate with you, and then I could be a teammate with somebody else in the same state.
Really? Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yep, you just got to enter again, so you're basically creating a new team.
Huh, that's interesting. We'll have to go back to the drawing board on that. I did not realize you could do that. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I thought it was cool anyways. So.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. So, yeah, I guess, hey, finishing up like with our season, Taylor kills that deer. We go into late muzzleloader.
And when was that, Blake? When was Taylor's deer?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date on it. It was late November. I want to say.
Oh, late November. Okay.
Yep. We had gotten
Which
to
is
that
fine.
point.
I just wasn't sure if it was like you guys were whacking and stacking them from late October right into early November, or was it later in the month? That's all.
Yeah, no, it was like mid-October with Alex, late October with me and Chris, within a couple days, and then my brother was November 8th, and then Taylor, like I said, I know it was late November because we got to a point where we just couldn't get back out to film. It's hard to get two guys in a blind to film that many days of the season, and we just kind of ran out of time, so he was on his own when he got that deer killed. But nonetheless, finished off a really successful season as a group, and late muzzleloader was good as well. I didn't punch a tag, and neither did Taylor. Taylor kind of had a heartbreak. I'll save that story. That might be something you want to talk to him about on the podcast someday. But Chris managed to kill a really good one on his last day to hunt, and it's like 160-inch 8. But he shot him right there at last light. And when he got up to him, both antlers had fallen off. We're laying right next to the deer. So I think he made a post on Facebook about it. But pretty odd season when it came to deer losing their antlers. Are you guys finding quite a few sheds up your way, or did you see a lot of shed bucks early this year?
No, we haven't found anything. It's been nothing but snow up here, actually.
Yeah. Well, and likewise here, the thing that we saw early on here was just bucks starting to shed their antlers early, and I think that stemmed a lot from an early snow that we got in November. We had like 12 inches of snow before gun season at the very end of November, before the deer had a chance to catch up as far as putting some weight on before things got really cold. So it's been a very weird winter down here for sure, and we had a lot of bucks shedding early, and Chris fell victim to that late muzzleloader when he shot his, and the antlers popped off. It doesn't take away from the hunt, but it was definitely
that is pretty cool. Yeah, that is surprising. Yeah, and to get back to just as you know, Blake, we've had just this bizarre winter, and it's been just sub-zero temperatures, and majority of the winter here we've had tons of snow, and you know what that does to shed hunting, makes it almost impossible.
Yeah, and I'm sure up your way it's maybe a little bit more common. Down here it seems like the last few winters have been mild, and this year there's pretty much been snow on the ground from the end of November through now, and we're sitting on anywhere from 3 to 5 inches everywhere that's kind of frozen over, and I'm hoping here in the next week we get some of it melted off so we can get out and find shit. Put everything to a halt right now. So. Yeah,
it has for sure. I'm hoping the same thing, and hopefully it warms up just a touch to make it a little bit enjoyable to get out, because it's been close to zero, and warm days like 18 with 20-mile-an-hour wind, which isn't very warm. So I'm in the same boat with you, man. I'm just waiting, kind of chomping at the bit to get out and do some walking here.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when you walk out and it's like, man, it's really nice out today, and you look at the temperature and it's 25 degrees. Like, it's been a long winter when that's the case.
Oh, it has, yeah. We got some 40-degree days coming, I think, here shortly, and it's like you just said, it's almost like, man, I'll be able to throw the winter coat away at 40 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. We'll all be running around in shorts and T-shirts then.
But we'll definitely have to talk about the other deer. Hopefully you could bring that back up sometime, or we'll have them on the podcast and do it too. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be, them winning the Hunt Quest this year, that would be, I think you would enjoy talking to Chris and Taylor, especially about that, and you can kind of discuss that gun deer that Taylor didn't get, the one that got away. That's a story I'm going to save for them to tell. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it would be really good to have them on, since they were part of the Hunt Quest and being part of the quest going forward. So yeah, that would make some really good stuff to kind of fill the listeners in even more on how the contest works and how those guys liked it. And yeah, would love to do that. So yeah, let's hook that up.
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem. So what else were we going to talk about? I know we were going to talk about our season. And
yeah, just the season, and I think just kind of managing, different people and how you guys kind of put together just all those personalities into hunting different properties. And I think you explained it really well. And if anybody's thinking about maybe doing a lease with somebody or looking for hunting partners, I think Blake left some really good tips on just make sure you're communicating, and I'll just call it the next man up discipline. If somebody can't do it, somebody's got to step up, and it keeps the stress away and the drama away.
Yeah, and to go, I guess one other thing that I didn't touch on when it came to the leasing, when we kind of got into doing this stuff together, one of our biggest goals is, to afford our kids the opportunities that we had at a young age. And, in today's hunting world, it's not like it was when I was a kid where knocking on a door and getting permission was just not that difficult. And, with, a little bit of commercialization and just more hunter participation, it's getting a little bit harder to just get permission. And so, leasing becomes an issue. And, if we're going to give, I have 2 sons, Chris has 2 daughters, and Taylor's got 2 sons now as well. He just had a baby here recently. If we're going to try to give all of our kids the opportunities that we had, or even better opportunities at deer hunting in the outdoors, then, putting ourselves together, getting as much ground as we can collectively, whether it's purchased, leased, or permission, sharing those responsibilities, building relationships with landowners, doing all of those things now, hopefully will allow us to then take our kids hunting. And I look forward to the day where, I'm behind the camera for my boys, Chris for his daughters, and Taylor for his boys, and they'll be kind of the spotlight and, I guess, you mentioned the next man up kind of thing, but they'll be our priority during hunting season versus ourselves. And we all collectively share that mentality. So that really helps.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's, super true words. And, I think of that, with my son coming up, and it's always about that. I'm, pretty much have already in the future taking a back seat to him, being able to go with me and do things. And it's all about, learning new properties and kind of grabbing the properties you can get, why you can get them, because they don't come around very often. So, yeah, super true words there, man. But, Blake, I appreciate you being on the show today and sharing the awesome stories, and hopefully I'll have you on again, and anybody else from the crew, just let me know and we'll do this again.
Absolutely, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, man. Do you want to let anybody know where they can find you or look up the upcoming season of the hunts?
Sure. You can still follow along with us at Muddy's Facebook page, gomuddy.com. Trophy Pursuit right now is inactive as far as like the Facebook page and Instagram, but they're still there. You can still go and follow them, and if things change and we go back to that flag, obviously we'll be posting back on those accounts again. So other than that, I've got a personal Facebook page and a personal Instagram. That's pretty easy to find.
Yep, I'll make sure to tag you. But thanks again, Blake, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Brandon.
All right, man.